Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a conversation that really gets to the core of a massive question, one we all ask ourselves at some point. Are you really living the life you want? This whole thing kicked off because of a story about a 30-year-old influencer who was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And that news, it just opened up this conversation that, let's be honest, most of us try to avoid our entire lives. It really makes you stop and ask yourself, if you only had 2 years left, what would you actually do? All right, so let's get into it. Before we even look at the answers people gave, we kind of have to ask, why is this question so tough? Why is it so hard for us to even talk about? It's pretty wild when you look at how different cultures handle this. There's this huge divide. For example, in many Eastern cultures, like in China, talking about death is a massive taboo. It's like you're literally asking for bad luck. But then, in a lot of Western cultures, it's still a heavy topic for sure, but it's way more out in the open. And that difference, that cultural programming, it totally shapes how we think about the time we've got. And that leads to this really interesting point, right? We do plan for death, but think about how we do it. It's all about logistics. We get life insurance, we write up wills. It's all driven by money, by practical stuff. What we almost never do is use that idea, the fact that our time is limited, to step back and completely rethink how we're actually living our lives day to day. So, okay, back to the question. When one of the speakers was asked what they do with 2 years, they opened up about this dream they have, a dream that's basically been gathering dust because of, the daily grind. And what was the first thing that came to mind? The immediate gut reaction. I'd quit my job. Just get out of that office worker life that eats up all our time and maybe even more importantly, all our mental and creative energy. I mean, that's a feeling a lot of us can relate to, right? So with all that new freedom, what's the plan? Well, two big dreams floated right to the top. First, to go back to drawing comics, something they've been passionate about since they were in middle school. And the second, to finally travel and see the world, starting with just getting out of Asia for the first time. But then you have to ask, okay, what's been stopping them this whole time? And the answer is something so many of us struggle with: perfectionism. It's that voice in your head that says, my skills just aren't good enough yet, or this has to be absolutely perfect before I can even start. It's such a classic trap, and it keeps so many amazing ideas and dreams just locked up inside. Okay, so the second person's answer, wow, it comes from a totally different world. This wasn't about a quiet dream that got pushed aside. This was forged in the fire of some really deep personal trauma. Basically, their whole life was shaped by growing up with a narcissistic parent who would actively try to sabotage any shred of happiness. I mean, every time they tried to express themselves or feel any joy, it was just shut down. That creates a lifetime of having to bottle everything up. And coming from that kind of background, it creates this incredibly powerful, urgent need to find some meaning in all that suffering. The goal isn't just to forget it or move past it, it's to take all that pain and turn it into something with purpose, something that can have an impact. So their 2-year plan is less about personal satisfaction and more like a mission. Step 1. Get famous, but not for the ego, right? It's about building a global platform. Step 2, use that platform to publish a book to tell the story of how they survived. And the final, most important step, use that story to reach out and show other people they can get through similar trauma too. So think about this. We have these two completely different stories, right? One person's held back by perfectionism, the other is propelled forward by trauma. But what's so fascinating is that when you really look at it, they're both being pulled back to the very same kind of place. I mean, just think about it for a second. Creating comics, sharing a personal story through writing and performing, both of these answers go right back to passions they found when they were kids. Back before the world starts telling you what you should be doing, what's practical, what's realistic. And this just perfectly captures a journey that is so common. As a kid, you find something you just love to do. No reason, you just love it. Then you hit young adulthood and you get sent on this detour, a practical career, the path you're supposed to take. And then what happens? We spend a huge chunk of our adult lives just trying to find our way back to that thing we loved in the first place. So we've just heard two incredibly raw, honest answers to a really powerful question. And now it's your turn to think about it. Let's be real. Most of us, day in and day out, we live as if we're immortal. We operate on this quiet assumption that we have endless time. And so we take our real dreams, our passions, our life's work, and we shove it off into this imaginary future called someday. A someday that, for a lot of people, never comes.
Now, listen, thinking about this isn't supposed to be morbid or depressing. It's actually the complete opposite. It's a tool for getting crystal clear on what you want. Seriously, facing the fact that our time here is finite is one of the best ways to cut through the noise and figure out what actually matters to you.
So let's bring it all back. Forget about needing to be famous. Forget about the pressure to be perfect. What would you do? What is that one thing you know you would regret not doing? What is the work of your lifetime?